How are you, Dave?
What's going on, guys?
Not too much. Great to have you on today. Maybe you could piggyback off what we were just talking about. Like, what was your feel coming to Toronto? Obviously being a bit of a local product, but what was that feel when you showed up in Toronto?
I loved it. I remember getting traded just after I scored the game-winning goal for the Blackhawks.
Not a big
So
deal.
I think it was like 2 weeks later, because it was that year's a lockout. So I think it was Carbomb and I. We were watching golf at my house, and I saw a call coming from Stan. And I was like, and I kind of knew what was going on during the season. There was some chatter that some guys had to go because of the cap and everything. So I got the call from Stan. He's like, "Hey, what's happening?" I'm like, "Well, I kind of know what's going on here. I think I know the issue." He goes, "Yeah." He goes, "We traded you." He's like, "But I'm gonna send you back home to Toronto." So to hear that from Stan after helping them win two Stanley Cups was great. But when I got traded to Toronto, I was like, "Oh, even better." I was excited. I couldn't wait to get there, just to being from Toronto and being from Etobicoke or Mimico. It was a dream come true.
Dave, we were just talking about like how different, how unique this market is. Like Stewie mentioned, he had the opportunity to sign with the Leafs back in the day, didn't choose to. And even in this market, we're still talking about Luke Shen leaving, going to Nashville. Specifically, Ryan O'Reilly got a bit of heat, but I totally get it. Did it bother you at all? Maybe it was a bit different. You came from Chicago, where obviously you're in the spotlight as well there. But like, did it bother you at all? Like playing in the market and dealing with the media?
No, I loved it actually. I kind of like it. I kind of rally behind it, and for me, it was kind of the same as Chicago. Those Chicago fans are tough. They're not
Yeah.
easy. When they're down, they get on you and they give it to you pretty hard. So when I came to Toronto, the media, the fans, they didn't really bug me. As long as you show up and play and you work hard, anywhere, I think the fans aren't going to say much, or the media's going to say much. But I think if you take a few nights off or a few months off, they're going to be all over you.
Did you actually have any interactions with the fans negatively? I know you know Steger, the infamous story where someone threw dog poop on his car in his condo or something like that. Any of that happened to you?
No, that didn't happen to me, but I can see that happen to Steger for sure. He opens up his mouth a little too much than I do. But I've never had that story.
Stewie?
Going back to, we were talking earlier about just if they win a cup in this market, how much legends that they would be. How is it for you every time you go back to Chicago? I see all the videos on Instagram. I still follow you and what you're doing. How is it when you go back to Chicago and in just interacting with the fans? Like you guys are legends there. Same as
Oh
London as
no,
well. I know not as much as
no,
London, but
Richmond
no.
Row, eh?
More, no more.
yeah.
Yeah, yeah. We just get all the Western students in London. Yeah, when we go back to Chicago, it's like right when you step off the plane, it's like people greet you everywhere. Like it's just everywhere you go. You go to a restaurant, someone always sees you. That someone notices you, or the fans love you. And you get wherever you go, you get taken care of anywhere. But like you said, if Toronto wins, they'll be legends till they die. I know I've been a Leaf fan, Stu. You've been a Leaf fan. You grew up in Scarborough. We all. That's one thing. Before I die, I'm still a Leaf fan in heart, and I still want to see them win a Stanley Cup before anything goes down. But like they'd be living legends. There's nothing that they would have to do for the rest of their lives, and just show up in Toronto and you'd be taken care of.
Yeah, big time. What's your read on this team? Obviously, it's they're off to a pretty decent start. A bit of turbulency as is the case most Novembers, but it seems like they've weathered the storm a bit. Nylander's a rock star. What you feel in this team?
It's always like every Leaf fan. We're gonna knock them down
Yeah,
till they get good. But up front, they're unbelievable. They've got so much power. I think that third and fourth line, like you look at our team in Chicago in 2010 and 2013. I was kind of that third line grinder. I took down the Sedin twins. I took down Jumbo Joe. I was going against all these top lines, and I think as you look at it, those third and fourth lines, they win you guys games, and they win championships. You got your star players, Matthews and Marner, Nylander. They're gonna be there every game. You're gonna get a goal or two out of them whenever. But when you get those third and fourth lines, and you're shutting down those top lines, and you can't get out there against them. And I remember Quinville had me out there against Taser and Kane would be on, and the Sedin twins would come on, and Taser and Kane would come right off the ice, then I'd be right on the ice. And those were just some of the I did whatever I could to win. If I had to get punched in the face a few times or stick the Sedins or whatever I had to do, that was my role. And hey, we won 2 Stanley Cups while I was there. They won an extra one, but it's those third and fourth lines that win you championships. And then I think they're missing a little bit of defense. I think you got Riley in that, but I think in the start of the season they were looking at Pietrangelo there, and I think he'd be a great fit. But it's just the way things go. But I think a little bit on the D and goaltending. But
yeah, that's another conversation too,
that's
right?
a lot of ingredients missing there.
Dave's like, they need a brand new team.
Yeah, but I think every playoffs there seems to be like a players coming out party, and I think for you guys it was Big Buff, right? So when you look at this roster, like who's going to be that Big Buff or the Marshall, so the guy that sort of comes out of nowhere and turns into a star. So, looking at this roster, especially on that bottom 6, like who can be that guy? Maybe it is a Robertson or something like that, but it's got to be built in that ilk, big, strong scoring. I think of Game 7, triple overtime, the type of goal that's being scored. I don't think it's coming off the rush, right? And going wide and going far down. It's going to be an ugly goal. So who's going to be that guy? And so I think Bull's made a perfect point on that.
No, 100%. Like you said, Big Buff, and then you got you talk about Big Buff, but then you talk like Andrew Ladd, myself. You talk about Steger. We had
Eager,
so much.
Eags.
There's a ton of us that just throwing in an extra goal there. I remember Eager had a few extra goals there. Those are huge goals by fourth line. But then you had Big Buff that Pronger. Nobody could move Big Buff. Like he was just a truck, and he could fly down the wing. He could hammer you in front. Luongo hated him. Like nobody could move the guy. But those were, like you said, those are your unsung heroes that stepped up when you don't have Kaner and Taser, a few of those top guys, Sharpie, that maybe had an off night, but hey, we show up. It's kind of like you kind of got both lines going, but you got the top line, maybe not that night. You got our line going, so you gotta just have the presence of the whole team there.
I won't lie. I had that feel last spring when they brought in Ryan O'Reilly, and his DNA was all over the goals in the Tampa series, right? But I think specifically in this market, like we try to quantify how to win, what it means to win. I think it's so easy. Let's bring in a guy who's won. They did that with you. They did that with others. I get that. But like my question for you is like, back in your days in Chicago, was there a moment where you looked around, you saw some of the big boys on that roster really pull up their pants and say, you know what, we're going to do anything we need to do to win a hockey game? Sometimes I watch the Leafs in the playoffs and I just don't feel that way, sadly.
To be honest, that year we played against the Detroit Red Wings. The year, I think it was Pittsburgh and Detroit. I think Detroit won that year, right? Most of us could not believe how far we made it, but we had a good team. I got lined up against Datsuk, and I just got my show ran. I was like, Jesus, I'm like, this guy is unbelievable. He's stopping, popping me. I'm winless. Well, hit me right in the chest. I can't breathe. I'm like, how do I get around this guy? This guy's unbelievable. And that was a learning curve for us. We lost against them. We knew what it took to get to the finals, to the division. But we knew what it took. And I think that next year we came in, we got Host. Host just came off a final loss, Kopecky. And we had some guys that came in that year. And hey, that year we played in 2010. I think we went, I'm not sure, but I thought we went on like a 8 or 9 game losing streak, almost like the Oilers right now. But that's another question too. But I think we went on like a 6 or 7, maybe not 9 or 8, but we were like, oh my God, this is not good. But like you said, we stuck by each other. We knew what it took to get there from the year before. Host knew what it took to get to the finals, and we came in that next year and just blew it all up.
Yeah, so going back to that, Tampa Bay losing, to Columbus, I think in 4 straight. I think part of it was they were trying to get all these records. They had their foot on the gas the whole entire year. Going back to your cup runs, was it an aspect of the season where you said, "Hey guys, we're not necessarily going to be going pedal to the metal, not take nights off, but just say, hey, you know what? We're not necessarily going to push so hard if we're down 3-1 in the middle of the third, knowing that it's an 82 game season." Because in this market, it just seems after every win, it's a big deal, and after every loss, it's an even bigger deal.
100%. It's a long season. I think once you go all the way to the end, what is it, like 120, 130 games that you play in your body. If I sent you a picture of me holding the cup in my jock, you'd look at me and be like, "Oh my God, this guy needs a meal." Like
Yeah.
I was skin and bones. But it's a long season, and I know that season when I did come in 2010, I had some back issues. I had surgery on my back in November, so when I came in, I was well rested. I think I missed November, December, January. I think that was the Olympic year. My trainer's like, "Hey, if you don't come back for before the Olympics, you're not getting those 2 weeks off." So I was like, "Fuck!" I'm coming back. I'm like, I'm getting back as fast as I can here. I want those 2 weeks off. I've had enough weeks off, but so when I came back, I was well rested. We were just getting probably about 30 games left in the season. I was ready to go once those playoffs came, and I was well rested. But there was other guys that have been through the year and been through the ringer. But we had guys that, and like you said, it's knowing your role. It's knowing the first line guys what they do, the second line, third line, and fourth line. Everybody's just got to know their role, and as long as you're playing in between those, you're fine.
So, Bulls, the most polarizing conversation right now in Toronto stems with Willie Nylander. He's a rock star, as you mentioned off the top of the interview. He ripped it up in Sweden. What's your read on that? Obviously, I mean, you've been on that side when it comes to contract negotiations and talks and stuff like that. But where do you stand when it comes to the Nylander conversation?
I don't know. It's gonna get tough now because
Ooh, yeah.
they just. I think every game goes by, he's making another million or half a million that they're gonna have to give him. So it's a tough situation. It's tough. It's either they do something now or they wait and lose him, or you see one of the top guys go. It's tough. It's there's many scenarios around it that I'm kind of stuck with what they're gonna do. What are they gonna do? There's not like
Give them all the money.
you got
That's what they're gonna do. That's what they have to do.
Yeah,
That's
but
not what they're
it's
gonna do. They have to do.
it's easy for a former player to say that, but that's my problem with this whole thing is like why does every fan think the Nylander camp has to win this? Like, why can't they meet in the middle? Like anybody you talk to, it's like pay the man, pay the man. It's like, do you not know what a salary cap is?
It's tough, but like
Yeah.
when you're playing, like I came my time in Toronto. I remember sitting there with Shanahan, and he was offering me not that much, and Florida came in and offered me more. You only got a certain time period to make a lot of money when you're playing. You don't know when your next injury was. I cut my peroneal tendon. I got in another year. I got in and got my contract. Tried to keep up playing, and I just couldn't keep up anymore. My ankle was giving out. It was more mentally, it was more on my mental side, trying to keep up. I
Mhm.
know I could play the game, but with my ankle, I just couldn't keep up. And fortunately, I signed my 5-year deal and I got my money. But it's just one of those deals with Nylander. He's gonna want what he wants, and it's gonna be tough.
Patrick Kane, right? The Leafs have been linked to him. You played with Kaner. Um, cap aside, because I get it. Fit aside, like what would a guy like Patrick Kane bring to the Toronto Maple Leafs?
So everything you get him, you got more. He's a gamer. He's if you watch him during all of our series wins, he's in every situation, every goal. He's in it. Game-winning goals, 2010, most of game-winning goals against LA when we beat them. Game-winning goals against Vancouver. He's just going to bring everything to the table, and he's Kaner does not take losing well. He takes it pretty hard. So when he's on the ice, he wants the puck. Like whenever you get the chance to give it to him. I just don't know how it's going to go with Marner, Matthews, Tavares. All these guys are going to want the puck, but it would look good for the Leafs. But I wouldn't say that's where the Leafs should be going. I think the Leafs should be looking for more on the back end and maybe in the goaltending situation.
Make sure to check out more of our content right here on the Leafs Nation YouTube page. We got long form interviews, we got clips, we got epic rants by Jay Roseau. We simply have it all. And don't forget, you can find out much more at theleafsnation.com. Thanks so much for watching.